Well, hello, my loves, and happy Sunday to you. Another fun project today from my Art of Anthropology book. I wasn't going to do another one today. I was going to do something different, but I'm just so inspired. I don't know. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So I'm just taking you along for the ride and hoping that you enjoy it too. So let's see. Let me just show you, and I'll show you more, but here's my inspiration. I think you can see that. It's a quilt pattern made from old envelopes, like vintage envelopes, and then just regular, like business envelopes with the cool pattern on the inside. I'll show you that in just a second. But this is my inspiration today. And I'm going to, of course, make it my own. So I'm going to leave that out. And that'll stay. Okay. I'm going to make it my own, and I'm going to do the background because the background's really, really white. And I want more character to it. I want it more my style. So I'm going to do that. But what else do I have to tell you before we go over what I've done so far? When you see this video, my newest workshop, Abstract Attraction, will be out, and we create 3 wonderful abstracts and in this workshop, and I take you step by step. I give you some really good tools to building. It's abstract realism, so we're taking a subject and we're kind of abstracting it. It's not just complete abstract. But I give you some really good tools to help you create that and to make it easy. And we do it step by step. And it's just so fun. So good. So that is out right now with the early bird pricing of only $42. And then it'll go up it'll be on early bird pricing for about 14 days, somewhere in there. And then it'll go up to the regular price of $57 or $62. That's right, $62. So, letting you know that, super fun, mixed media, abstracts, my kind of thing. What else do I have to tell you? The papers. So, I'm adding to the subscriber library some papers, the postcards that I'm going to show you in a second. And I'm also going to show you the quilt pattern that I'm using. And that I'll have a copy of that in the subscriber library as well. And I've added some new tabs in the subscriber library and a couple new papers in there, just random papers that I came across that I was like, oh, those are cool. I'm going to put them in the library. But I found I have a separate tab of Sunday inspirations that I'm beginning to do so that if you're thinking about a Sunday inspiration, you can't find it, it's going to be all listed in the library by date, which will be really nice along with the picture. And then also in the subscriber library is our weekly newsletter that I send out, just in case you missed one. It's got good announcements and different things like that, things that I've done throughout the week. That'll be in there as well. So new stuff in the subscriber library. And that is it. So let's take a look down here. So here is my page so far. And I love this background, love it. It was just super easy. So I first on my page put down just a coat of gesso, and I didn't do that on camera, but I just brushed on some gesso. And then once that gesso was dry, I came back with some Matisse Payne's Gray fluid acrylic and kind of wet my background down, my page down, and then put the Payne's Gray on there and just kind of smushed it around. I had no pattern or no plan for, where it was going to go, and then kind of patted it up and let it be kind of loose and light in some areas and dark and a little thick in other areas. And then dried that and then kind of came and patted that up and kind of came back and did the same exact thing with my sepia, Daler & Ronnie's sepia ink in the same way. I just wet the background, dropped my ink in and kind of smooshed it around, kind of, let it drip a little bit, and then came back and kind of picked it up with my paper towel. And then once I did that, then I came back and fully blotted it with my paper towel and got this really light kind of aged look for my background. Then I came in with two stencils. So the Be Strong stencil and the dictionary page stencil. Both of those will be on sale this week. And I did them on the outside. I kind of equally spaced them out and equally used them. But I was picking specific things for my page, for the meaning of the page. And so I did that on the outside because most of my quilt pattern is going to be towards the center and kind of coming out a little bit. So I wanted some of that to really show. And then probably what I'll come and do after we're done talking, I'll probably kind of wash this out a little bit more. I really like it the way that it is, but I think it needs to be a little bit lighter because my postcards and things are lighter, and so I want to be able to have that contrast. So I'm going to, once I get all my pieces cut out, I'll kind of take a look at it and see if I need to kind of put a whitewash over this to kind of mute it down just a bit. If I don't, I'm going to leave it like it is because I love it. Love it. Okay. I just went online and found a quilt pattern, and I wanted something different than the book, just to be different. So I found this quilt pattern, and I really liked it. It was simple enough. I didn't want it to be too difficult. So this will be available for you in the subscriber library to download if you want, or you can just go online and get your own. But what I've done is I've cut out the different pieces in the quilt, and I'm going to use this to trace around onto my papers. And my papers that I have out, I have some of the envelopes that, the inside envelopes that have the cool pattern. Just regular old envelopes that you get in the mail every day. Save those. Those are always good for collage paper. And then these are going to be available to you in the resource library. So not every single one of these, but like this sheet and this sheet, the two larger ones, those two I'm going to put into the resource library along with the quilt pattern for you to download if you want it. But I am going to use these to cut out my pattern. And then the book also shows you, let me bring that back over here. The book shows you how they do it. Here's an envelope that they've cut open, that they got the pattern and traced it onto each part of the envelope. And then they came back and they dyed it. They always use like vegetable, they create their own dyes. I will not be doing that. I will be using some type of paint or ink or something like that to get some color variation in my pieces. I want to try and leave a lot of them natural, but then I also, I want to kind of create, I love this kind of burnt sienna color. Love that. A lot of these colors are very much my own, and so I want to kind of create some of those colors. And this is kind of like a Payne's gray, and this is that blue kind of inside the envelope. It's almost the same exact pattern. So we'll see. That's kind of my plan. I don't know exactly yet, but they did dye quite a few, and you can dye it and still have it be light enough that the writing of the envelope still shows through. So let me put that back there. So that is my plan for this page. And we'll see how it goes. Now that I look at that again, I definitely probably am going to do a little bit of a wash over this because this is a little too busy with all of the other things that we'll be putting on here. But I want to get my pieces cut out first, and then we will go from there. I think that is it. Okay. So as I was inspired by this piece, or by this page in the book, and I started to think about, because I went looking for quilt patterns. And as I was looking for quilt patterns, I saw so many that my grandmother had, I still have them. And anytime I'm out and I'm like in an antique store or whatever, old quilts just draw me in. There's such a story to them. And then being able to use envelopes to tell the story of this page. So there's all this story that's happening within what we're creating. And again, it goes back to that art of storytelling that I talked about last week. But this is our story. And like for me, the quilts that my grandmother and her grandmother, they've been passed down. Some are barely hanging on and I've had to repair them. But they have so much meaning to me. They have so many memories. They are part of who I am. They're part of my family story. And as I was thinking about that, I really started to think about all of the components that are going into this page and how it is telling a story, how it's telling my story, how it might tell your story, and how our stories stitch us together. And while I won't be sewing a quilt or sewing my papers together, we are stitched together by our stories. And our stories bind us to each other. They let people know who we are and that it's okay to be who they are. And when we share our vulnerable parts, it allows other people to be vulnerable as well. And so our stories are so very, very important. And I think about that too, like with my journal page. My journal page is a document of my story. Like so many of the quilts that I have. My grandmother would sit around with other quilters and tell their stories as they were stitching. They lived life together, making a quilt for each person in their quilting party. And it was so amazing to know that part of her story. And so, those kinds of things have been handed down, and my love of sewing, my love of, because I have sewed for years, sewed all my kids' clothes, and I love needle crafts and all of that kind of stuff that came from my grandmother. I sat with her as she taught me how to do all of those things. That was her story and her legacy. And our stories and our journey is our legacy. And so as I was going through all of this and putting this whole picture and this whole meaning to what I'm doing today, besides just the fact that I'm allowing this book to inspire me, the meaning of it really came alive for me. And so I wrote, I should have marked the page. Hang on just one second. Okay, so I sat down and I wrote, in my journal, I said, we are stitched together with our stories. Our stories make us who we are, good or bad. Our stories can be good or bad. And I've got a lot of bad stories in my childhood, with my parents, as a parent. We have good and bad stories, but those good and the bad make us who we are. They are part of us. We don't have control over what happened in the past. We do, however, have control over our future and the story we want to write for ourselves right now. My story can give hope, can encourage. My story that I'm writing today and in every season is a legacy for my kids and their families and their families. And for my friends, it's a legacy, our story. How do you want to write your story? Just like the quilts I hold so dearly and the hands that made them, they are part of history and part of my story. And so I just go back to how our stories connect us and how, while we all have stories in our past that we don't like and we don't want to relive and we don't want to think about, but those stories have brought us here. We are here. But from here forward, we get to choose how we respond to those stories, how we live out those stories, how we change those stories, and how we rewrite our story. And we are stitched together with our stories. And when I share mine, it gives you permission to share yours, to change yours, to write a new chapter of your story. So I just want you to, I just wanted to share what was happening with me as I began to put this project together and think about all the parts that go into it and all the parts that are stitched together in this page, not necessarily stitched. Our stories are important to who we are and to where we're going, and we can rewrite them at any time. All right, my loves, I hope your Sunday is restful and peaceful, and I hope that if you don't like the story that you're living, that you can pause and rewrite a new one, or you can truly celebrate the story that you're in and the past and all of the stories that have led to who you are. Celebrate that. And then don't be afraid to share your story, because it's so very, very important. All right, my loves, have a wonderful Sunday, and I hope that you know you are always, always loved.